Right now, while you're watching this, there's a quiet war going on in your head. Not against an enemy you can actually see, against a ghost. Think about that one thing that's been keeping you up at 2 a.m. Maybe it's losing your job, ending up alone, being judged, failing publicly, realizing somewhere down the line that you wasted your potential. We try everything to outrun it, scroll to numb it, overwork to outpace it, pretend it's not even there. But the second the room goes quiet, it's back. That cold, tight knot sitting in your chest, the one that doesn't seem to care that you have work in the morning. Most videos will just tell you to be brave or think positive, hand you a motivational quote from some Roman emperor who's been dead 2,000 years, and tell you to pull yourself together. Let's be honest though, when you're genuinely scared about the future, a quote on an Instagram graphic doesn't move the needle at all. It feels hollow. And here's why. Fear was never really a motivational problem. It's closer to a design flaw in how human psychology works. A piece of very old software running on a very modern life. I'm not going to tell you to just stop being afraid. That's never worked for anyone, and it's not going to start working today. Instead, I want to walk through how the ancient Stoics actually used something very close to psychology, centuries before the word existed, to take fear apart, piece by piece, like taking apart a machine and strip away its power over you. Not by outthinking it in a single clever moment, but by understanding exactly how it's built, so it stops having the element of surprise. By the end of this, that knot in your chest won't necessarily be gone, but it'll make sense. And once something makes sense, it's genuinely hard to fear it the same way you did when it was still a shapeless thing in the dark. What fear actually is to beat fear, you first have to understand what it actually is mechanically. Psychologists have a term for the specific thing we're talking about: anticipatory anxiety. Fancy phrase for a fairly simple glitch. Your brain is, in a very real sense, a time machine. It's constantly projecting itself into a future that doesn't exist yet, constructing worst-case scenarios in vivid detail, and then reacting to those imaginary situations as if they're happening right now, in the present, in your actual body. Think about it concretely. If you're dreading a hard conversation tomorrow, telling your partner something difficult, asking your boss for a raise, sitting down with a doctor for test results, your heart rate is already elevated today. Your palms are sweating today. Your stomach's already tight today. You are quite literally suffering right now, in the only moment you actually have, over a disaster that hasn't happened yet, and, statistically, might never happen at all. Seneca captured this with almost surgical precision in a letter to his friend Lucilius. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Sit with how enormous that claim actually is for a second, because it's easy to skim past. Most of the pain you've experienced across your entire life probably didn't come from things that actually happened to you. It came from expecting those things to happen, from the rehearsal, from the anticipation running on a loop in your head at 2 a.m. You're essentially torturing yourself on credit, paying interest month after month on a debt you might never actually owe. Why do we do this to ourselves over and over, despite knowing better? Because your brain genuinely, deeply hates uncertainty. To your basic evolutionary wiring, the part of you that hasn't updated its firmware in about 200,000 years, uncertainty reads as danger, full stop. Ambiguous situations, unclear outcomes, unknown futures. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish neatly between unknown and threatening. So your brain would genuinely rather hand you a miserable certainty than sit patiently with an unknown future. It fills in all the blank, unwritten spaces of tomorrow with monsters, because a monster, however awful, is at least a known shape. But Stoicism was never really about slaying those monsters in some dramatic confrontation. It's about turning the lights on in the room and realizing the monster was just a jacket hanging on the back of the door the whole time. The same jacket that's been hanging there for years. Turning the lights on. Premeditatio malorum. So how do you actually turn the lights on practically tonight, the next time this happens? The Stoics had an exercise for this that sounds a little insane the first time you hear it. Premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of hardship, or more loosely, the premeditation of evils. Modern self-help culture tells you to visualize success, manifest your dream life, picture everything going exactly right, and hold that image until you believe it. The Stoics did more or less the opposite. They told you to visualize your absolute worst-case scenario in specific, unflinching detail on purpose ahead of time. Let's actually try it right now rather than just talking about it in the abstract. Think of the thing you're most afraid of losing or most afraid of failing at. Don't push it away the way you normally would. Look directly at it, the way you'd look at an X-ray. Say you lose that job you're worried about. What actually happens step by step? You lose your income. Okay, then what? You cut back on spending. You update the resume you've been putting off updating for 2 years anyway. Maybe you move into a smaller place for a while, or you crash on a friend's couch for a month or two while things sort themselves out. Maybe you're eating simple, cheap food for a stretch, rice and beans, instant noodles, whatever gets you through. Is that unpleasant? Sure, genuinely. Is it uncomfortable, even humiliating in moments? Absolutely, no argument there. Is it fatal? No, it isn't. And that last question is the one that actually matters, because fear rarely bothers to ask it. Seneca actually used to take a few days every month and deliberately live like a poor man on purpose. Rough, simple clothes, cheap bread, sleeping on a hard floor instead of his usual bed, no servants, no comfort. And while he did it, he'd ask himself a single, direct question. Is this the condition I was actually afraid of? Is this the thing I'm currently living through? The disaster my imagination had been building up for weeks? Almost always the honest answer was, not really. It was uncomfortable, sure. It wasn't the annihilation his fear had promised him. He realized, through repeated practice, that fear thrives specifically in the vague, blurry shadows of the unknown. It needs that fog to survive, the way certain things only grow in the dark. Force yourself to actually look at the worst case in vivid, specific, almost boringly practical detail, and something quietly freeing happens. You realize you could handle it. Not that you'd enjoy it, not that it wouldn't hurt, just that you could survive it, get through it, come out the other side of it. And that realization changes the entire relationship you have with the fear itself. Humans, as a species, are remarkably resilient. More resilient than the anxious part of your brain will ever give you credit for in the moment. You have survived 100% of your worst days so far. Every single one. You've survived heartbreak that felt permanent at the time. You've survived embarrassment that felt like it would follow you forever, and, statistically, nobody else even remembers. You've survived failures you were certain WW. Stoicism just quietly points out, based on the evidence of your entire life up to this point, that a crisis usually reveals you instead. Shows you capacities you didn't know you had because you never needed them until you did. Making it concrete, 3 common fears taken apart. Let's actually run this exercise through a few common specific fears people carry around, rather than keeping it abstract. Because the value of premeditatio malorum is entirely in the specificity. Take the fear of public failure, messing up in front of people, being visibly wrong, embarrassing yourself where others can see. Push through it. Say it actually happens. You stumble through a presentation or a project you championed publicly falls apart. What actually happens next in practical terms? People notice for a day, maybe 2. Some might mention it. Then, almost universally, life moves on. Because everyone else is far too consumed with their own anxieties and their own upcoming embarrassments to spend much time cataloging yours. The humiliation you're picturing has an audience in your head that is enormous and endlessly attentive. The actual audience in reality forgets remarkably fast because they're doing exactly what you're doing, worrying primarily about themselves. Take the fear of ending up alone. Push through it. Say the relationship you're in ends, or the one you're hoping for never happens. What actually follows? Grief, certainly, for a period. Real, valid grief that deserves to be felt rather than skipped. Loneliness for a stretch. And then, based on essentially everyone who has ever gone through this before you, some form of adjustment. New routines. New connections eventually. Sometimes when you least expect them. Human beings are built for connection, and they tend to find their way back toward it, given enough time, even after real loss. The permanent isolation your fear is threatening you with is very rarely the actual outcome, even when the worst version of the fear does technically come true. Take the fear tied to health, a diagnosis, an illness, aging itself. This one deserves real respect, because sometimes the worst case genuinely is severe, and Stoicism was never about pretending otherwise. But even here, the exercise holds real value. Because most of the suffering attached to a feared health outcome happens before any diagnosis exists. In the anticipation, in the endless rehearsal of a scenario that hasn't been confirmed. Seneca himself suffered from what sounds, by his own description, like severe asthma, and wrote candidly about facing down the fear of suffocation and death directly, rather than looking away from it. His conclusion wasn't that fear was irrational here. It clearly wasn't. It was that rehearsing the worst outcome honestly in detail robbed it of the specific terror that comes from vagueness and left him able to actually function in the meantime, rather than being paralyzed by a future that hadn't arrived yet. The dichotomy of control. Once you've actually stared down the worst case using that exercise, you need something else. A daily framework to keep fear from quietly creeping back in the next morning, because one exercise, done once, rarely holds for long on its own. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, and it might be the single most useful idea to come out of the entire philosophy. Epictetus, a man born into slavery, who suffered a permanently damaged leg for mistreatment by an early owner, and who went on to become one of history's sharpest and most influential minds, broke all of life down into just 2 simple categories: things that are up to us and things that are not up to us. Here's the part that changes how you actually experience fear day to day. Somewhere around 90% of your fear lives entirely in that second category, the not up to us pile. You're afraid of what your boss thinks of you, not up to you. Afraid of the housing market crashing, or the economy shifting under your feet. Not up to you. Afraid someone might eventually leave, or stop loving you, or change their mind. Also, fundamentally, not up to you. Every single time you invest your emotional stability directly into something you genuinely cannot control, fear is not a random malfunction. It's the entirely predictable, almost mathematical result. You're handing the remote control for your own peace of mind over to a world that, frankly, has no particular interest in giving it back to you gently. Picture an archer standing at the range, the way Epictetus himself used this image. The archer can control how hard he trains beforehand. He can control how he cares for his bow, how carefully he checks his sightline, how steadily he draws the string back. All of that is entirely his, completely within his own hands. But the moment the arrow actually leaves the bow, it is out of his control completely, immediately, permanently. A sudden gust of wind can carry it off course. A last-second movement from the target can cause a miss that had nothing to do with his form. The amateur archer ties his entire sense of satisfaction to whether the arrow lands dead center on the target. So he lives, every single time he shoots, in low-grade fear of the wind, a force he will never once be able to control, no matter how many years he practices. The Stoic archer, by contrast, ties his satisfaction to how well he actually shot the arrow, to the training, the form, the care taken in the moment of release. He knows with total clarity that the wind belongs to the world. The effort belongs entirely to him. Shift your own focus this same way, from outcome to effort, and fear genuinely, measurably, starts to lose its grip. You stop obsessively tracking whether you'll win, in whatever form winning takes for the situation in front of you, and start pouring your attention into playing the actual game as well as you're capable of playing it. The job interview outcome isn't yours. Your preparation for it is. The relationship's future isn't yours to guarantee. How honestly and fully you show up inside it today is entirely yours. Marcus Aurelius and the view from above. There's another tool worth adding here, one that Marcus Aurelius used constantly in his own private notebook, written for no one but himself, during a reign that included plague, war, and betrayal from people close to him. He called it, roughly, the view from above, a deliberate mental exercise of zooming out, picturing your specific fear from an enormous distance, almost like watching your own life from somewhere high above the earth. Try it with whatever's currently gripping you. Picture the situation you're afraid of, the conversation, the diagnosis, the failure, and then imagine pulling back, above the room, above the building, above the city, above the country, the continent, the curve of the earth itself. From that vantage point, the specific fear that felt enormous and all-consuming a moment ago starts to shrink, not because it stops mattering, but because it gets placed back into an honest sense of scale. Marcus Aurelius used this specifically to remind himself that most of what consumed his attention on any given day, court gossip, insults, political maneuvering, even his own anxieties about ruling well, would be entirely forgotten within a few generations, the way almost everything eventually is. He wasn't trying to convince himself that nothing mattered. He was trying to correctly calibrate how much any single thing should be allowed to consume him, given how brief and how small any one moment actually is against the whole shape of a life, let alone the whole shape of history. This isn't about minimizing real pain, a job loss, a health scare, a broken relationship. These are genuinely significant, and Stoicism never asked anyone to pretend they weren't. It's about noticing when a fear has expanded to fill your entire field of vision in a way that's disproportionate to its actual size, and gently, deliberately, pulling the frame back out until it fits into a more honest perspective again. Voluntary discomfort as ongoing practice. Seneca's habit of periodically living like a poor man wasn't a one-time stunt. It was a regular practice, something he returned to deliberately, almost like training. And this points to something worth building into your own life, if any of this has actually resonated. Voluntary discomfort, chosen on purpose, in small doses, as ongoing preparation, rather than a single dramatic exercise. This can be genuinely small and still work. A cold shower instead of a hot one occasionally, just to notice that discomfort is survivable and doesn't actually require the panic your body wants to assign to it. Skipping a meal you didn't need once in a while and noticing hunger is uncomfortable but not catastrophic. Walking somewhere instead of driving when you're in a hurry, and sitting with the mild anxiety of running a few minutes late instead of immediately rearranging your whole day around avoiding it. None of these are meant to be miserable, and the Stoics weren't interested in unnecessary suffering for its own sake. That's a common misreading of the philosophy. The point is narrower and more useful than that. Repeated, small voluntary exposure to manageable discomfort quietly teaches your nervous system that discomfort is not automatically an emergency. And once your body has learned that lesson in small low-stakes doses, it becomes far easier to apply the same lesson when a larger, real fear shows up uninvited. What fear actually costs you, compounded over time. It's worth pausing here and being honest about something most people underestimate. Not just what fear feels like in a single bad moment, but what it costs you, compounded across years when it's allowed to run unexamined in the background of your life. Every hour spent rehearsing a conversation that never happens the way you imagined it is an hour that didn't go towards something you actually wanted to build. Every opportunity quietly declined because the worst-case scenario felt too vivid, too real, too unbearable to risk, even when the actual odds were heavily in your favor, is a door that stays permanently closed. Not because it was locked, but because nobody ever tried the handle. Seneca's line about suffering more in imagination than reality isn't just a comforting observation about individual bad nights. It's describing an actual tax, paid continuously, on a life that could otherwise have been fuller. Understanding fear this clearly isn't just about feeling calmer at 2 a.m., although that matters plenty on its own. It's about noticing, honestly, how much of your actual decision-making has been quietly outsourced to a threat that, statistically, almost never arrives in the specific shape your imagination keeps insisting it will. 3 steps to actually use this tonight. If you've stuck with this all the way through, something's probably already shifted a little in how you're holding whatever's currently gnawing at you. You've started to see that fear isn't some unbeatable external monster with a will of its own. It's an unexamined thought, running on old software that hasn't been checked against reality in a while. Next time that cold, familiar anxiety starts clawing its way back into your chest, and it will probably tonight, probably about something specific, here are 3 steps worth actually running through, in order. First, stop the time machine. Pull your mind back, deliberately, into the actual present room you're sitting in, the actual present breath moving in and out of your chest, this actual second, right now. Notice something physical around you. The texture of the couch, the temperature of the room, the sound of the house settling. You are safe, specifically, right here, right now, regardless of what tomorrow might or might not hold. Second, deconstruct the ghost. Look directly at the worst-case scenario, the specific thing your mind keeps circling back to, and ask yourself the exact question Seneca asked himself on that floor. Is this the condition I actually feared? Walk through it in concrete, boring, practical detail. What would actually happen, step by step, the next morning, the next week, the next month? Strip it of the mystery and vagueness that have been quietly giving it all of its power. Third,